In the context of the environmental impact assessment, the environmental quality standards and the discharge limits, they are very useful. They provide an objective value for protection of the different environmental components. This is a help for authorities and industry to focus the discussion and the preparation of projects on environmental impact assessment, because it establishes objective criteria that can be used for the assessment and the supervision and the follow-up of commitments. Another advantage of environmental quality standards and discharge limits is that they make possible the comparison and the assessment of different projects in different sectors. Especially the discharge limits, they are focused on parameters of concern for each industry and type of project. In that way, the authority has objective criteria to assess the project, focusing on the parameters of concern and characteristics of each industry. An important aspect of the discharge limits is that it is also useful to assess different options of treatment, because they are focused on the results of the treatment facilities. In that way, if we have different options, we can see the alternative and focus on some parameters that are characteristic of the industry or important for each site. If we manage the discharge limit in a proper way, we can achieve a continuous improvement of the treatment systems, and we can focus through the establishment of special parameters or values, the development of systems that may treat some parameters that are important for a site or for a kind of industry. Environmental quality standards and discharge limit are technical tools, but also they are highly technical. They are used by a wide range of people, including the general public. This makes it that these people, they don't have the expertise that is necessary to use these tools in a proper way. So sometimes what we see is that they are using discharge limits, environmental quality standards, welfare organization guidelines as the same thing for different uses. It's common to find, for instance, papers or articles in the newspaper where you can see that they are comparing the quality of the river, that is a receptor body, with World Health Organization values, or applying environmental quality standards to the effluents, where we should use the discharge limit. If we use this in a bad way or not in a proper way, we can create confusion in the public, and there may be not even the perception, but also probably the conclusion that there is a contamination problem where there is not. This kind of problem, for instance, has been noted by the Ministry of Environment in Peru during the discussion of the problems that have been risen during some of the conflicts in Peru. I think that one of the biggest challenges for industries and for governments is the explanation of these tools to a wide range of public and avoid the misuse of the environmental quality standards and the discharge limits. A further complication comes when, for instance, these environmental quality standards and discharge limits are being updated, because these processes are normally complex. They take some time. There is a kind of adaptation time, and during this time you have two limits or two environmental quality standards that are valid at the same time, and that of course creates bigger confusion, and we have to make clear which of the values sets are the ones that are valid for each product. Finally, a limitation that you can see often is that the environmental quality standards and the discharge limits, they don't consider the regional characteristics. What I mean is, we seek for a single value of environmental quality standards of discharge limit that should be applied in the whole country, or even, in the case of the financial institutions, we have values that should be valid for a wide range of countries that have different environmental characteristics, different environments. For instance, if we see here in the Andes of South America, we have higher concentrations of metals in the soils or in the sediments as we can find in Canada. So the use of Canadian standards may give the impression that our soils or our sediments are contaminated, when it is a cause of the natural geological settings of South America. In the specific case of mining, this is very important because normally if you have a mineral deposit, what you have is higher concentrations of metals in the soils, in the sediments, and in the water of the rivers. Actually, that is a way of finding mines. If you find a water course that have bad water quality, you may follow the stream to see where it's coming from, and you may find a metal deposit that will be probably mine. So if we don't consider the environmental quality standards, this characteristic that is natural, we may also create some problems to the industry and to the assessment of the impacts of the activity. One tool, an additional tool that can be used in environmental impact assessment is the risk analysis. The risk analysis has been used or is used in many countries to assess contaminated sites. What we do here is we establish the concentrations of the parameters of concerns in the different environmental components like soils or water or air. We identify the receptors that can be flora, fauna, or human beings, and we establish also the pathways for assimilation. Once we have established concentrations, receptors, and pathway, we can calculate the amount of the element that the receptors are assimilating and see if that is creating or generating a risk to the health of the environment. In a similar way, in impact assessment, if we have a concentration that is higher than the environmental quality standards, we could assess if this higher concentration is generating also a risk, and if we have to take some mitigation measurements to avoid this unacceptable risk. I think that will be a tool that can be used in impact assessment to assess this kind of situations.